topic, and I'm honored to introduce our speaker today, Professor Anja Neundorf of the University of Glasgow in the UK. Anja is a leading international scholar of political behavior, research methods, and comparative politics, and her outstanding scholarly contributions were recently recognized in her election as a Fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences. She's currently leading an ERC Consolidator grant on the topic, Democracy Under Threat: How Can Education Save It? Anja's talk today will focus on her co-authored paper on the topic of promoting democracy through social media.
And, this kind of goes back to some basic, if we're thinking about, how to strengthen democracy. And I'm using here, a famous quote by Larry Diamond, who's, of course, a very important scholar in this field, who said that for democracy to endure, their leaders and citizens must internalize the spirit of democracy. And when we're thinking about this, this is really about kind of how can people internalize the spirit of democracy. For this really, kind of to democracy is to be stronger, to be more resilient. People need to love democracy. Yeah. And how do we love something? How do we become passionate about something and start identifying with it? Just to summarize this. So what we do see, and we have multiple, outcomes that we try to measure here, is we do see that generally democratic preferences are kind of boosted with our treatments. We also see this important reduction in support for non-democratic forms of governance. And we had a really interesting measure, I think, at least how we measured kind of a candidate selection where people were given like two different candidates to choose. One that represents their own interest in terms of partisanship, for example, and another one that is actually against their interest in terms of partisanship or policy preferences, but is democratic. And we see, this is the challenge, right? Like, why do people blindly follow their, kind of parties, even so they, start dismantling democracies in their country? So we need to overcome this. And our videos also helped to reduce this kind of blind following and rather like democracy trumping partisanship in a way. We increase knowledge and a small extent enhancing political engagement.
The question is, you find that the effects of the video were consistent across very different political and economic contexts. Is your conclusion that there is no need to tailor the message to the unique context of each country, or it is impossible that videos could be even more effective if they are designed to be more context specific?
So we had designed these videos to be very abstract and neutral and not to refer to any specific context or experiences and so on purpose, right? Because it was a cross-country design. And so we needed something that we can use the same, in video and kind of speak to these different audiences. However, we always expected exactly this, what you just said, right? That ultimately it will probably be more impactful if we relate the content to a specific country context. In the meantime, we did another study in Burkina Faso that was just published in PSRM, where we focused on a specific challenge of that regime, which is terrorism. Yeah. So this is a country that has high prevalence, continued widespread terrorism and a strongman dictatorship. So what we tried here is we created an additional video about the because we see that, the research on terrorism and support for democracy and kind of, and so on shows that when there's terrorist attacks, people crave strongman role. Yeah. They want somebody to step in and just deal with it and not all this kind of complicated democratic decision making. And so, this is kind of the expectation. Yeah. And so, but in reality, when you look at the evidence, democracies are much better at dealing with terrorism. Yeah.